guys twins?
No.
Yes. Tegan.
What is this, a business meeting?
Hey, twin two. Got a name? Sarah?
Tegan and Sara? Doesn't even rhyme. Your parents blew it.
Sara, I would like to go to you first and just ask you what it's been like to watch your story come to fruition in this way, not only in this way, but with Clea and Laura at the helm, and Railey in season, playing you and your sister, and Kobe as your mother. I mean, it just gets better and better.
Let's just start with Kobe. I mean, forget my real mom. I feel so, my head sort of is still spinning, knowing that the show is finally going to come out. It feels like it happened so fast. It really does feel like just a few years ago that Tegan and I were sitting with Clea at my kitchen table talking about, whether this was a realistic idea or a realistic pursuit. And, in some ways, as much as the pandemic was a nightmare for our touring and music business, it did free up a ton of time to get this project in motion and made. And I'm just really grateful. It's super cool. I think the fear always when you're, for me anyways, Tegan and I are control freaks, and we have like this kind of like inner circle of people that we make things with. And to make something on this level, there's not a lot of control. We weigh in, we have opinions, but, you really have to surrender a lot of creative energy I'm just so delighted it turned out in a way that I'm proud of, and that I'm moved by, and all the people involved, all the people you just named, all the actors, all the writers, and the team around the show were so phenomenal. So I'm just excited for it to come out in the world and have people see it. And, the surrealness of like making a show about our life. Like I've been living a kind of Truman Show since I was 17 years old. So I don't know if it means that I'm like not mentally well, but like it feels really natural. I don't know. Like I'm just like, yeah, there's a show about us. I don't know. It's very weird,
Right. Well, that's the price of fame, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so.
Railey, this is a new experience for you all across the board. And among those experiences is, not just acting, I think, for the first time, but playing someone who exists, who you've met at this point. And I wonder if you would talk about playing Tegan and what that's been like for you, just a general question about the experience.
I mean, it was great. I loved it so much. And I think relating to Tegan and Sara so much was like obviously super helpful in playing them and portraying them on screen. But I mean, overall, like it was just so much fun and I loved it.
Good. Sara, I have spoken with Clea previously. We actually have a piece going in Advocate Print about high schools. So I'm excited about that. We talked at length about capturing the 90s in this very authentic way where she wanted it to feel timeless. Something that really resonated for me is these dual stories of kind of coming into sexual identity simultaneously, yet alone. And I think that really captures the isolation of that time and not knowing who you could talk to. And I think that there are kids today, even with all the visibility that we have, I think there are kids today who still feel isolated and who will relate to that, especially. And I wonder if you would speak to what it means to you to put this out in the world, knowing that it could resonate for some kids who really need it. Sorry, that was a long question, but
no, it's a wonderful question. It's a wonderful question. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like a really important distinction. I think there's this idea that the 90s were a nightmare for queer people and now it's just everything's fine, and I just, a lot of the work that Tegan and I do with our foundation, the Tegan and Sara Foundation, is working with small grassroots organizations, local communities, individuals who are struggling with the same sort of institutional, discriminatory, homophobic structures that we were dealing with in the 90s, and those are things that allow, kids to get sort of lost in the system or the foster care system or the education system. I mean, not that much has changed. And I think that's why you see this sort of representation on social media of kids who are now 25 or 30 years younger than we are, and they're still talking about the same things that we were talking about in the 90s and in the 80s. And I think a central part of that is just that we have a culture that is really based on heteronormative, patriarchal shit. Like, that's just what it is. And so to be queer, to be other, still feels uncomfortable and sometimes isolating. And, finding stories that we can connect to, that's probably what we've been doing since we were sitting around in caves and like drawing on the wall with, coal or whatever. Like, right. I tell you a story and you say, wow, I feel a little bit less alone knowing that you went through that same thing as me. And I feel really excited that we've been given an opportunity to share a slightly, unique version of a story that I think probably we'll all be telling for a really long time, which is, figuring out who we are is hard, and it takes time, and it takes different people different amounts of time to do that. Tegan, she was sort of clueless and didn't know what was happening for her in high school. And then suddenly she just was like, whoa, I kissed my friend. I guess I like girls. Anyways, moving on. And for me, I didn't, it took me a lot longer to come to terms with, my sexuality. So I think Tegan and I are, we are a unique way to show how different people can respond to their identities, even when they're so similar,
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And kind of in line with this, I do want to ask, because there's this really, it was a moment that kind of shocked me in the show. It's not shocking that it would have happened then, but with Patrick, where he makes this homophobic slur, and he's a good guy. I don't think he's homophobic, but this is a casual homophobia that just existed at the time. And I wonder if you would tap into, portraying that a little bit, how this good guy can just have these set of ideals that are, not very welcoming.
Well, I want to say, I don't think that it was, I don't think that that's just common to that time. I'm sure. I mean, I hear people say terrible things about gay people all the time. I hear people say homophobic things all the time still to this day. Mm-hmm. I think what was, I'd like to just say to Patrick on the show. So my stepdad's real name is Bruce. I think Bruce is a great guy. I think he is a great guy, but I think we were at a time in our dynamic and relationship where there was a lot of education going on. Tegan and I were going to school, hanging out with our friends, picking up all of these ideas. My mom was in college. She was, she was doing like anti-racism workshops and like hanging out with lesbians. And like, she would come home and be like, here's what I learned at school today, and Bruce was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like he really was just like, I was at a construction site and then I came home and my daughters and my wife are like giving me a anti-racism, anti-discriminatory TED talk, like it was just, I think he was always kind of being enlightened and educated by all of us. And I think that, in the book, Tegan tells the story of our stepdad referring to Kurt Cobain, in it with a homophobic slur. And we felt it was an important story to include because the outcome of that was probably the most unique part. It wasn't that Bruce said that, it was that he was able to hear Tegan's appeal and her perspective. And he was able to walk away and think like, wow, I need to change the language that I use in front of my kids. And I need to sort of like, I don't want to be seen as homophobic. I don't want my kids or anyone to think I'm homophobic. And I think that was an important story to keep in the show.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. Railey, I just asked Sara about, what it's like to have this story possibly resonate with kids today who feel isolated, who are coming out and queer. And here you are playing a character who is providing that kind of visibility for these kids. And I wonder if you would talk a little bit about what that means to you or how you feel about that.
I mean, I'm like super excited for people to see it. And I really feel like people will, relate to it and feel less alone. I mean, I wish I had a show like this to watch when I was 15, 16, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like really excited and it feels really good to be able to play that person. And I mean, even from making my TikTok videos, people would tell me like, oh, I feel like so much more confident just because I'm seeing you like wherever I am, just making videos, being myself. And so, I mean, it means a lot to me to be able to do that for other people.
Yeah, wonderful.
That was my experience of seeing Season and Railey's videos on TikTok. You know, I don't think it is an understatement to say how revolutionary it is when I think about social media, that we are in control of what we put on the internet for the first time in history. I mean, we always, up until social media, you know, there were the gatekeepers and the tastemakers. If you were on radio, you needed like 5 men in America to care about your music. If you were on MTV or you were on TV in general, there was a sort of there was a standard and there was expectations about what you looked like, who you were in relationships with, etc. And so, you know, I'm still very struck by the fact that for all of the negatives about social media or TikTok or whatever, you can put your video of yourself eating your lunch and having your short haircut and doing a fit check, and nobody can tell you can't do that. And that's not, you know, something that we should take for granted. That is new. That is new in our world or in our career. And I think that it's a significant part of what allows us to break through some of the out of date stereotypes and standards that in some ways kept bands and artists and, you know, queer people from breaking through generationally. And so when I saw Railey's video, I mean, I look at it like, I'm like, oh my God, like, look at these cool kids. Like, they don't even give a fuck. Like, they are just like in their cool outfit, talking to the camera. Like, I was super inspired by it. It's awesome.